Well, you know, he's always just so easygoing. I mean, the newsroom can be going crazy, chaos, and you run out there and they're giving you the 60-second standby, 30-second standby, here you go. And it was like, Johnny was always just, he'd calm me down, always. You know, there I was a kid, 24 years old, out there sitting next to him, and it was like, I mean, running around. He'd say, okay, now, Marilyn, now that's all behind us. Everybody's done their job. Now it's time to just communicate with the public. And so it was just a comforting, nice, easygoing role out there. It was good for me.
Several people already told me he's unflappable.
Unflappable, right.
Never got mad at anybody.
Never. I only saw him mad once the whole time I anchored with him, which was many years. 79 to 86, Johnny and I anchored together. And of course I worked with him in the newsroom a lot after that. And only one time did I see him mad, and that was right before a 10 o'clock newscast. It was about 10 minutes to 10. Almost 20 years ago to the day, actually. I was thinking about this morning, but I was going over my scripts, and there was a story that was very complicated, but the way it had been written absolutely made no sense. So I asked the 10 o'clock producer about it. I said, hey, Al, this doesn't make any sense. And it was just one of those tense nights where he got up, he just couldn't stand the criticism, and he picked up a typewriter and he threw it at me and proceeded to kick it. And, you know, and so Johnny hops up and he comes to my defense, and it was like, hey, you leave her alone. So then the two of us walk out to the set, kind of like, okay, here we go, and he should cool it, you know. That's the only time I've ever seen him mad, ever. But it was Johnny coming to my defense. You know.
Johnny told
What's so wonderful about his so many years in the business is that sometimes he's unconventional because, hey, been there, done that. The rest of us were very studied. We wanted to be successful. How do you be successful? We were measured. You know, but Johnny is just, hey, he was out there communicating with the folks. He was Johnny. So sometimes I was like, can you say that? It was great fun, though. He kept you on your toes.
I just did say.
Yeah, he said it, and he said it, and he said it year after year after year. I mean, it was fun stuff, crazy stuff, stuff that I wouldn't say. You know, I think he had such a wonderful rapport with the public that I never really worried about it, even when I was the news director and ultimately was responsible and could get the phone calls or the complaints or whatever, because it was always, I think people took it in the spirit that it was meant. So his quips or his off-the-wall comments were like, that's Johnny. He could get away with it, the rest of us couldn't. It would be, we just couldn't do it.
We're not Johnny.
Right, we're not Johnny.
That's what Diane said. He says,
right.
You just said, well, that's Johnny. And Teresa just told me on the phone, he says, yeah, he could say things I could never say.
Right.
But he got away with it. And it's funny how you all have exactly the same idea of Johnny. The other thing that's come up frequently is that a lot of anchor people have their on-air personality and then the real person. And Johnny doesn't.
No, Johnny is truly Johnny. I mean, he's exactly the same in the newsroom as you go out on the set. That's probably one of the biggest things I learned from him in trying to be an anchor, because, you know, you look at all these tapes and you look at people around the nation and say, well, maybe I'll be like that or maybe I'll be like that. And it was wonderful for me to sit next to him and say, no, what you really need to be is yourself. Because Johnny is, and he's been tremendously successful. I mean, think about it. His career is just unparalleled. So what I learned from him was be yourself. And then if I'm real lucky, by being myself, I'll be successful too. So that was probably my big lesson from Johnny Morris. I do have to tell you a funny story. I don't know if you guys can use this one or not, but it's my favorite story. Well, there's so many. I mean, Johnny and I, it's probably the time. It was, you know, it was this huge ratings war between 7 and 4, and we were the first co-anchor team, and I was young, and he was experienced, and there we went, and it was a scary time, you know. So, so in that, in the 6 years that we anchored together and we became a very successful team together, it was, in its strange way, our own little marriage. So I can't really verbalize how important he is to me and what a bond that really is, you know. But the funny story. Well, this one summer we had cicadas all over the city, and we were all doing stories on it, and there was just this cicadas everywhere. So Johnny had this habit of every night after dinner he'd come in and he'd have a few of them in his pocket, and we'd be typing away, and he'd come in and he'd throw them around the newsroom, and they would be screaming in the newsroom all night long. And so, you know, first night he did it, it was kind of funny. Second night he did it. Third night we were like, Johnny, stop it with the cicadas, okay? You know, and they're buzzing around, driving us crazy. So this one night we go out on the set that's been going on for about a week, and he comes in and he throws them around the newsroom, and we're walking out on the set and they're saying, you know, 5 minutes standby, 4 minutes standby, and he's kind of like messing around with his, you know, the pocket of his pants, and he's saying, you know, I think I have a little problem. I said, what? And he said, well, I had this cicada in my pocket, but I had a little hole in my pocket, and I think it's gone down now in the lining of my pants. And I'm listening, and he said, listen. I was like, and we hear the cicada, see? So, you know, I'm saying, well, what are we going to do? We can't have this cicada screaming through the whole newscast. There's 3 minutes standby, 2 minutes standby. So he's saying, well, I mean, I just don't want to crush it in my pants. I can't kill it just like, and I said, well, just take your pants off, Johnny. He goes, I can't take my pants off. This cicada screaming, okay, 60 seconds standby, and I'm thinking, God, I hope our mics aren't hot. I'm saying, Johnny, just take your pants off. You know? So he didn't do it. I encouraged him, but the very idea of me sitting out there going, Johnny, just take your pants off, was like, oh my heavens. But at any rate, what he did is he just kind of muffled it through the whole newscast. It was ridiculous, but
Slowly suffocating that
exactly.
thing. The other question I had for you, because you're in the position of now having worked with him and then having been his boss in the newsroom, now you have to replace him. How do you replace Johnny Morris?
You don't replace Johnny Morris. You can't. I mean, he's a pioneer in the business, over 50 years probably in the business. At this television station, think about it, it's unparalleled. 20 years in an anchor seat, always rated #1. You can't replace that. You know, so what we're going to do is we're going to wish him well and put somebody else in the seat and wish them well too, but you don't replace Johnny Morris.